All right, so something is developing in the US that not a lot of people are covering. And with all the war stuff going on, the issue with this is becoming a little bit alarming, especially if you are traveling. And so, if you haven't heard, a lot of the TSA, the lines are being backed up hours and hours. You have to get there in some sense half a day early to get through some of these TSA checkpoints. And I did some research. This is not all airports, but if you look at some of the airports that are being run in social media, people are showing evidence of this because a lot of the TSA have not been paid for, it seems like almost more than 35 days, a little over a month since the time of this recording, and even more than hundreds, I think more than 400 in this one article. TSA officers have quit since the shutdown began. And of course, I'm not going to get into some of the detail you may have heard, but not agreeing to a bill, the Democrats, Republicans in the House, the Senate, or whatnot, not being able to come together to allow that shutdown to end. But again, some of this, in some sense, and as we've seen and as I've talked about in previous years, there's been a little bit of an optics game, a lot of waiting on the other side, but also it's being done in some strategic fashion to allow certain things to play out that's behind the scenes. And of course, not all airports, in this case, from a little bit of research, more than 20 airports are private. They're not federal TSA type employees that are overseen by TSA under the screening partnership program, but namely airports like SFO, Kansas, MCI, and Orlando, among like 20 some other airports in the US, are not directly federal employees. So in that sense, they're being paid, but also they're going to be billed later to the government as these private companies are overseeing, or rather they're being paid their employees, but they're overseen by federal TSA employees. And so you won't see, in some sense, disruption at these airports, but others you have. And of course, I'm bringing this up because in the last day or so, Trump has been tweeting a lot about this issue and making the airports open again, and in particular, talking about ICE agents going into the airport. And so he tweeted here, if the radical left Democrats don't immediately sign an agreement to let our country, in particular our airports, be free and safe again, I will move our brilliant and patriotic ICE agents to the airports, where they will do security like no one has ever seen before, including the immediate arrest of illegal immigrants who have come into our country, with heavy emphasis on those from Somalia who have totally destroyed, with the approval of a corrupt governor, attorney general, and Congressman Omar, the once great state of Minnesota. And this truth post is coming on Saturday, but even a few hours later, he again posted the radical left Democrats have hurt so many people with our vicious and uncaring ways. What they have done to the Department of Homeland Security, our fantastic TSA officers, and most importantly, the great people of our country, is an absolute disgrace. And again, talking more about how they need to allow the country to be open again from the airport perspective. Otherwise, ICE, he says, will do a job far better than ever before. And so again, he's making this statement, but more interestingly, in this latter post, he's saying, likewise, I look forward to moving ICE in on Monday and I have already told them to, quote, get ready, no more waiting, no more games. And this is indicating, as being reported all over now, that ICE will be taking over the airports starting on Monday in lieu of the absent TSA agents. And then in a third post later in the day on Saturday, again, he says here, ICE will be ready to go on Monday. And of course, Trump being a man of his word in the sense of him allowing execution to happen on his demands, we're likely going to see ICE agents going into the airports on Monday. And then the very morning at the time of this video on Sunday, he says in a fourth post, on Monday, ICE will be going to airports to help our wonderful TSA agents who have stayed on the job despite the fact that the radical left Democrats, who are only focused on protecting hardline criminals who have entered our country illegally, are endangering the USA by holding back the money that was long ago agreed to with signed and sealed contracts. And all but watch, no matter how great a job ICE does, the lunatics leading the incompetent Dems will be highly critical of their work. they will do a fantastic job. Great Tom Homan is in charge. And again, this is very interesting because you are seeing a very expedited sort of fashion with regards to a month plus long ordeal where Trump is taking action quickly, decisively, and for some strategic purpose, as many people are theorizing. Now, Clandestine says here on X, if the public see ICE take over airport security, we are only one step closer to what the Dems really don't want, which is ICE at polling stations. If Trump gets voter ID, no mass mail-in ballots, and ICE at polling locations, the Dems' election fraud schemes are neutralized, and they will get steamrolled in the midterms. Not only will they lose substantial seats in Congress, but a landslide loss will confirm to the public that the Dems have been cheating in past elections via illegals and mail-in ballot harvesting. If Trump secures the 2026 midterms, it will be a death blow to the Democrat Party. And then in a different post here, it says Trump just confirmed that whatever he is doing with ICE at airports is somehow related to the Dems' plot to give our country to the illegals. What if elections were as secure as an airport? What if real ID was voter ID? What if ICE handled security for both? I see a path. So I'm bringing this up because there's a lot of interesting moves going on that seems unorthodox, that seems like, oh, this is crazy, and you're going to see a lot of reports going into next week about how things are illegal and just crazy what Trump is doing in this sort of dictator type way. But again, as we are seeing the board play out, as we are seeing this whole thing unfold, there are things behind closed doors that many of us are not seeing. And of course, this is to restore, in some sense, the law and order as much as possible to the country. And so let's see what happens, what comes of this. But it's a very interesting move to bring the ICE agents to control and to facilitate some of the TSA responsibilities. And of course, we'll see once they get together and vote on some bill to have the funding pass. But if this threat holds and if this really does happen, is it going to do one thing versus once they come together and pass something, is it going to allow TSA and many others to do certain other things? So I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below, but I just want to bring this to your guys' attention because it's something that not a lot of people are talking about in the sense of repercussions and what might happen going into next week and also into the future, as many topics and the news is really just neck deep in covering the Iran situation. So let me know what you guys think. If you guys want to help me out, I would love your guys' support. Thank you guys so much for the prayers and the financial support. All of the work, the details is in the link down below. If you guys want to support me, would love it. Talk to you guys very soon. Be blessed, be encouraged.